Hello there, and welcome back for day 32. This week, we are still talking about the umbrella topic of purpose number 4, which is ministry. You were shaped for serving God. Today's topic is entitled Using What God Gave You. Romans 12 and 5 says, Since we find ourselves fashioned into all these excellently formed and marvelously functioning parts of Christ's body, let's just go ahead and be what we were made to be. That's the Message version. Discover your shape. Begin by assessing your gifts and abilities. So, over the last 2 days, if you were not watching, go back to day 30 and 31, where we talked about what SHAPE is. SHAPE is an acronym, SHAPE, that stands for spiritual gifts, your heart, abilities, personality, and experience. And we talked about what all of that means. So now we're going to apply some of that knowledge. Ephesians 5 and 17 says, Don't act thoughtlessly, but try to find out and do whatever the Lord wants you to. Romans 12 and 3 says, Try to have a sane estimate of your capabilities. Or another version says to be honest in your evaluation of yourself. So consider your heart and your personality. We've looked at your gifts and abilities, what you're naturally good at, what God has given you. Now consider what your heart says and your personality. Galatians 6 and 4 in the Message says, Make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Or another version, the New Living Translation, says that you don't need to compare yourself to anyone. Just focus on what your work is. Examine your experiences and extract the lessons that you have learned. Deuteronomy 11 and 2 says, Remember today what you have learned about the Lord through your experiences with Him. When Jesus washed Peter's feet, he said in John 13 and 7, You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand. So look at your experiences and see what there is to be learned. You might not understand now, but later those memories of those experiences and lessons will come into play and will be valuable at a later time if it's not already in the present. Only in hindsight do we understand how God intended a problem for your good. Galatians 3 and 4 encourages us by saying, Were all your experiences wasted? I hope not. Since God knows best for you, you should gratefully accept the way He fashioned you. Romans 9:20-21 says, What right have you, a human being, to cross-examine God? The pot has no right to say to the potter, Why did you make me this shape? Surely a potter can do what he likes with the clay. Okay. So part of it, accepting your shape, is recognizing your own limitations. God assigns each of us a field or a sphere of service. 2 Corinthians 10 and 13 says, Our goal is to stay within the boundaries of God's plan for us. Or it says, of the work that God has given us. So we've got to understand what our gifts are, understand what our personality is, look at our experiences, and then realize our limitations. Like, hey, I may not be for everyone. There's a sphere of influence and a sphere of service in which that I'm supposed to do the work that God has called me to do. And that can happen on several different levels. Just stay within the boundaries of what God has asked you to do. And your call will be different than everyone else's. We do not dare classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. That is 2 Corinthians 10 and 12. Basically, what that's saying is don't compare yourselves with other people. They have their own things to be measured by and compare themselves And if you compare yourself to them, then you're not being wise, because they have a different call, they have different instructions from God. And if you're comparing yourself to someone else, it's not really a fair comparison, because they have their task and you have theirs. So there's no comparison in God's kingdom. All you have to do is listen to what God is asking you to do and stay in your lane and do it. Keep developing your shape. We are to cultivate our gifts and abilities, keep our hearts aflame, grow your character and personality, and broaden your experiences so we will be increasingly more effective in our service. Philippians 1:9 says, keep on growing in your knowledge and understanding. 2 Timothy 1:6 says, kindle afresh the gift of God which is in you. And the NLT, it says, fan into flames the spiritual gifts. So keep growing in the things that he's given you. Make sure that you're fanning the flame, doing the work, keeping stirred up, because a lot of times we get revelation from God or things that we know we should be doing, and then you kind of let it go by the wayside until he reminds you again. And what this is saying is keep afresh the gift that God has given you. Don't let it settle. Don't let him have to come back and remind you another time of what he's already said. Just keep it afresh. 1 Timothy 4:14-15 says, be sure to use the abilities God has given you. Put these abilities to work. Throw yourself into your task so that everyone may notice your improvement and progress. In Jesus' parable of the talents, the master said to the servant who had failed to use his one talent, and this is according to Matthew 25:28, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. So what's the lesson there? If God has given you something, even if it's perceivably less than what he's giving someone else, he still expects you to do something with what he gave you. Because here in the text in Matthew 25, he took away from the gentleman who had one talent, since he didn't do anything with it, and gave it to the one who had more, who was wisely using what it was that God gave him or his master had given him. And there's a lesson in that. I've said it already, don't compare yourself. Don't focus on somebody else having more. And I say someone else having more than what you have. Use what you have. Use what God has given you to the best of your ability. If you fail to use what you've been given, you will lose it. And we don't want that. We don't want to lose the things that God has given us or entrusted us with, whether it's a gift, a spiritual gift that you only get because of your salvation, a natural talent, an ability. Your experiences are not to be wasted. The things that he's given us is not for nothing. So to wrap up, today we've been talking about use what God gave you. We are to assess our gifts and skills and abilities, consider our heart and the personality that he gave us, examine our experiences and the lessons that we have learned, accept the way that he's fashioned us. He's made us a certain way on purpose. We're not supposed to be like everyone else. So to accept the way that he made us and recognize our own limitations. We have our sphere of influence and our sphere of work where we're supposed to be using the things that God has given us. Keep developing. Never get stagnant. Keep growing. If there's an area that you notice, hey, I could do better in, then seek after that knowledge and understanding and the experience that would make you better. And remember, last but not least, the principle in Matthew 25, use it or lose it. Listen, guys, I don't want to get to the end of my life and God said, I gave you this and you did nothing with it. I don't want that. And I don't want that for you. So have a great day. I know this one went a little bit long. I'm sorry about that, but that was what the text had for us today. Y'all have a great day. I love you. God bless. And I'll see you tomorrow for day 33. Thanks for joining me for day 32.